All right, little update here. Right now I'm working on the motor mounts, and this is the factory motor mount. So I thought I'd get new ones. One of the main reasons I wanted to get a new one was I thought maybe these are a little bit collapsed. I have a certain amount of space between the engine and where the subframe is that the steering rack goes in. So I need the engine to be up a little taller to get a little more clearance for the steering rack. And so I was like, okay, I'll buy new motor mounts, and they are pretty much the same height, but I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna make like a spacer block. I'll just cut some steel, which I did. I had some steel in the back, drilled some holes. I was like, beautiful, I'll just stick that on there and then bolt it in. However, when we go put this in, find out that the stud isn't long enough and we don't have enough threads for the nut. So I was like, great, okay, well, how am I gonna do this? So I decided that along with this, I'm going to lengthen the stud. Now, this stud is cast into, it's set into this aluminum. They must pour aluminum and mold it around this bolt. So you can see these aftermarket engine mounts that I got. I have found some bolts that are the same thread pitch, and well, I basically just cut the bolt to the right length that I need to compensate for this, and then I taper them down to a point, use a couple magnets to square it up, and then I'm just going to weld it solid. And then once I do that, that gives me the length of the stud. Now I wanted to sort of secure it a little better and make it overkill. So what I did was, additionally, I drilled 3 holes. You can see there's no holes in this, but I drilled the 3 holes. They all line up, and then I've threaded them. So what I'm gonna do is cut the heads off of these bolts and cut a slot in them for a flathead screwdriver. Red Loctite set screw. So it locks this plate basically to this cast piece down here, and then I use a step drill bit to basically punch this out so that it's open, and then I just fill it in with weld to weld this block to the stud, and it just sort of all becomes permanent. It's one big piece. I thought, okay, well, maybe like before I had to drill the holes, I thought, oh, I could maybe like go around and like weld on here, but I can't because it's aluminum, right? Aluminum and steel, can't weld them together. So the final finished product looks like this. You can see, looks pretty good. It's all solid. There's my set screws that are in there. They're Loctited in there real good. And then there's these shields that are supposed to sort of sit. They just go onto the mount. So now I needed to cut that out, which I did, and then I just kind of slid it on there and welded it on. And then we've got a shield here that goes on like this. So it's just gonna sit on there like that, and that just protects from heat and stuff like that, damaging the rubber. Not a big deal. And then the last piece that I still need to do yet is there's like a locating dowel that sits in here. You can see that would be this piece here. And that just keeps the motor mount, it keeps it from spinning around or moving, and it just puts the mount where it needs to be so that the studs are facing the right way to go into the subframe. So yeah, with the finished mount, just put this through, and that's gonna sit like that. We got lots of stud, so I can stick that shield in there, or if I really had to, I could make like another spacer plate to sit on top of this. So yeah, pretty much super overkill, but that's how I did it. And I think it's gonna work out perfect. I got just enough extra room for clearance for my steering rack to go through where the engine's not gonna interfere, and get the steering rack up a little bit taller. I need every little bit of room that I can get. And then, yeah, my only other issue now is because I've set the engine so far back, the wiper cowl runs along top of here, right? So it would be nice to get different valve covers or like custom like shave these down a little bit. These humps are here because they collect vapors from the oil. It's a PCV system, positive crankcase ventilation, and then those vapors get pushed back into the intake manifold, where they're then sucked in the engine and burned off in the combustion process. So these are important. You can't just get rid of them and block it off, because there's pressure inside the crankcase that needs to be bled off so that you don't get blow-by. I'm not going to get into that, but that's why it's there. I don't know if we've made a video with all this stuff. Yeah, so I've been putting in the work on the engine. We got a bunch of goodies. New alternator, because the alternator I did have was seized up. Reused the air conditioning compressor. Now, I'm not going to have air conditioning in this thing because I don't have the HVAC system all figured out, but maybe down the road. And I didn't want to spend the money on the bypass. I think some people were saying you could just get a different length belt, but whatever. I already had this belt, and yeah, I just cleaned up all the grease and rust and just shot it with some black paint. New pump with the original pulley, sandblasted and painted. We got timing belt, all that good stuff's in there. Fresh front cover, because the cover got all covered in oil, and then it's swelled up a little bit, and the harmonic balancer just ate into it and completely destroyed it. New harmonic balancer, because the old one was starting to separate. New water pump, new thermostat, a bunch of new gaskets. As far as the intake, that's all original, but cleaned up, of course, degreased everything, painted everything. Got rid of any of the corrosion that was on there. I got all new gaskets, and just working on changing out rubber hoses. This is just like some straight rubber hose that I've just bent, and I think it's gonna work for now in the meantime, so no sense in getting too crazy into it. And then yeah, the exhaust manifold, you can see those are like honestly the cheapest exhaust manifold headers, if you want to call them, that I could find. So I have a slight concern, and that's the clearance between the engine mount and the exhaust. I might have to do some modifications. It isn't touching. You could fit like a playing card in between there, but extremely close. So we'll see. I'm not too sure with the body clearance when this thing goes in, if this pipe here is going to clear the body. So I may end up having to cut this and basically merge these in closer or down further to fit into this body. So it is what it is. Like, sure, it's shiny and pretty, but it has to be functional. So I may end up cutting it and just making it completely custom. The entire exhaust is going to be custom, 3-inch, and I've got a couple resonators. Basically, they're mufflers, but they're not. They're just a straight through pipe with a bunch of with a baffle inside. And then I actually do have a muffler for it because I don't want it to be obnoxiously loud. Cleaned up all the ignition stuff, cleaned up all the original coils, and put new plugs in it. The ignition coil connectors all broke, which is a very common thing on here. All the heat and the oil, combination of that just makes the plastic very hard and brittle. So new connectors. The next thing I'm going to be doing after I get these engine mounts done is the wiring harness. So the wiring harness, I'm going to basically clean it all because it's all greasy and hard and crappy, and I've got a bunch of new stuff coming for the harness. I've got like a heat shrink wrap that's like a braided fabric that's heat resistant. I'm going to redo the whole harness. It's going to look really nice. I've got a bunch of new connectors that are going on, as a bunch of them have broken, so we're going to refresh that. And then I may be deleting some of the circuits out of there in order to just reduce the size and weight of it and all that stuff. So that'll be the next thing, but that's basically the update video for now. Been spending a lot of time on the engine, and you know, ordering gaskets that I wasn't sure if I needed, but then I need them. Same with hardware and stuff. I've actually got some titanium hardware just to dress it up for the valve covers, as I have misplaced the bolts for the valve covers for some reason. And also I have new exhaust studs and nuts coming as well for the exhaust manifold. So I think that's pretty much it. You got any questions, throw them in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this. And as always, subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.